One night, while Peter is on patrol, he notices a peculiar light coming from a warehouse. Curiosity drives him to investigate, but upon entering, he becomes uncertain about the nature of the mysterious object. As he delves deeper into the investigation, his spider sense warns him of danger, and he realizes that it's Mysterio, a formidable adversary. Knowing that Mysterio could pose a serious threat, Peter decides to wrap up the situation quickly by immobilizing him with his webbing. Throughout their confrontation, Mysterio talks provocatively, appearing delusional from Peter's perspective. He claims that Peter missed an opportunity to prevent his own death in the past, but asserts that he won't allow it to happen again. Peter, utterly confused, has no clue what Mysterio is referring to. Upon re-examining the source of the strange light, Peter's spider sense alerts him as Mysterio manages to grab a nearby gun and fires a shot at Spider-Man, narrowly missing him. However, the bullet damages the interdimensional vortex, pulling Peter into it. Suddenly, Peter finds himself in New York City, feeling disoriented and unwell. He notices the sudden transition from day to night and wonders about a peculiar structure in the water. Naturally, he assumes it's another one of Mysterio's tricks. Determined to uncover the truth, Peter swiftly swings back to the warehouse where he encountered Mysterio. To his surprise, the place is already occupied by someone else. While his initial suspicion proves fruitless, Peter resumes swinging through a city that appears strikingly similar yet subtly different. His curiosity piqued, Peter decides to investigate the mysterious structure in the water. However, as he makes his way there, he stumbles upon a robbery in progress and cannot simply ignore it. He swiftly intervenes, apprehending the criminals and saving the victim within seconds. While the person expresses gratitude, they also criticize Spider-Man's costume, finding it in poor taste. He's like, "Yo, we all need heroes, right? But that suit you're wearing, it belongs to Peter Parker, man. You shouldn't be rocking it." And guess what? The old Spidey dude acts all clueless, like he doesn't know who Peter Parker is. And that totally sets him off. He starts swinging around like crazy when suddenly this blur zooms right past him and he can't believe his own eyes. They both land on a rooftop and Miles Morales is just as shocked as our main Spidey guy. And of course, Peter's thinking, what the heck is happening here? Is it some kind of clone thing or a test from Nick Fury? Maybe a younger version of me. He's clueless on what's going on. Meanwhile, Miles is hyped and trying to figure things out and he's like, hold up, you ain't Peter Parker, are you? And bam, that just freaks him out even more. So, Spidey shoots a web at Miles, but the kid dodges it like a boss. He's stoked about how cool he looked doing that, but before he knows it, he's kicked in the chest. Spidey's like, this is your last chance, kid. Tell me who you are. And guess what? Miles brings up Peter's name again, making things even worse. So Pete tries to web him up, but Miles dodges it like a champ and tries to explain, I'm Spider-Man too, man. And while Pete's trying to wrap his head around the whole two-part, Miles is like, look, you're the one who showed up and started freaking out on me. As Peter is explaining the situation, I'm getting really scared. While the two of them are struggling with each other, Miles manages to touch Peter, and that's when Peter gets hit with a venom sting. Peter falls to the ground, and Miles tries to take off his mask. Miles tells Peter that if he's really Peter Parker, he has a ton of questions for him. But just before Miles can remove the mask, Peter grabs his wrist and throws him off the building, warning him that it's not something a superhero should do. Peter starts feeling guilty as he looks over the edge and realizes that Spider-Man is nowhere to be found. He assumed Miles would be able to stick to walls or shoot webs or something. He's feeling disoriented and not in control. He never would have acted this way. As he hesitates on the side of the building looking around, he says, "Kid, please don't be dead. I can't afford the therapy." Miles suddenly reappears, releases his grip on the building, and goes for a face kick on Peter. I didn't really think this through because now they're both in free fall. Luckily, Pete comes to the rescue and catches them with a web net. But then Pete makes a major superhero blunder by snatching Miles' mask off. It turns out this isn't some alternate version of Peter, but now Peter wants to know how Miles knows his name. On the other hand, Miles starts freaking out and desperately tries to protect his secret identity. He unleashes a venom blast, destroying the very web they're on and sending them tumbling down once again. Unfortunately, the blast also knocks Peter out cold. But just in the nick of time, Miles manages to save the day by grabbing Peter, finding his web shooter, and shooting out a line to swing them to safety. But Peter lands somewhat roughly, yet safely, on a nearby rooftop, where Miles can take off his mask and realize that he's the real Spider-Man. Miles is now contemplating what to do with this newfound information. Meanwhile, Peter wakes up in the Ultimates headquarters, finding himself held captive there, and he tries to explain how he ended up in this unfamiliar place to a different version of Nick Fury. Fury takes him outside where he and Miles can have a more relaxed conversation. Fury gives Miles instructions on what to do with Peter and sends them off in a helicopter. As they begin to bond and have a civilized discussion, Peter has one burning question for Miles. Is the original Peter Parker dead? Before he can get an answer, their helicopter is suddenly hit by an RPG, forcing them to put the conversation on hold.